I have discovered the jellyfish in you, and have described it to you clearly. The first time you heard of it, you proclaimed me a new genius. You remember, no doubt. It was in Scandinavia, when you were casting about for a new Lenin. I had other things to do and declined the honour. You also proclaimed me a new Darwin, Marx, Pasteur and Freud, even when I told you that you'd be able to speak and write as well as I do if only, oh you chosen little man, you'd stop shouting hurrah, hurrah, because these cries of victory becloud your reason and stultify your creative nature. Is it not true, little man, that you persecute unwed mothers as immoral? Is it not true that you draw a sharp distinction between legitimate and illegitimate children? What a pitiful creature you are to be running around loose in this vale of tears. You don't know the meaning of your own words. You worship the Christ child. The Christ child was born of a mother who had no marriage certificate. What you worship in the Christ child, you poor little marriage-ridden man, is your own yearning for sexual freedom. You exalted the illegitimate Christ child, made him into the Son of God, who regarded no child as illegitimate. But then, cruel and small as you are, you began, in the person of the Apostle Paul, to persecute the children of true love, and to give the children of true hate the protection of your religious laws. You are a vile little man. You drive your cars across bridges conceived by the great Galileo. Do you know, little man of all countries, that the great Galileo begot 3 children without a marriage certificate? You don't tell your school children that. And wasn't that one of your reasons for persecuting Galileo? A little man in the fatherland of all the Slavic peoples. Do you know that when he came to power, the great Lenin, father of all the workers of the world, or of all the Slavs, abolished your compulsory marriage? Do you know that he himself had lived with a woman outside of wedlock? Of this you made a secret, didn't you, little man? And then, through your great leader of all the Slavs, you revived the old marriage laws because you were incapable of embodying Lenin's great deed in your lives. Of all that you know nothing. What are truth, history, and the struggle for freedom to you? And who are you anyway to have an opinion of your own? You don't so much as suspect that it's your own prurient imagination and your sexual irresponsibility that have made you fetter yourself with such marriage laws. I've said it before and I say it again. You feel wretched and small, and stinking and mentally mutilated. You feel impotent, tense, rigid, lifeless and empty. You haven't got a girl, or if you have, your only thought is to fuck her to prove you're a man. You don't know the meaning of love. You're constipated. You take laxatives. You smell bad. Your skin is clammy or leathery. You have no feeling for the child in your arms, so you want to turn him into a little whipped dog. All your life you've been tormented by your impotence. It creeps into all of your thoughts. It interferes with your work. Your wife has left you because you couldn't give her love. You suffer from compulsions, cardiac anxiety, and nervous tensions. You can't stop thinking about sex. Somebody tells you about my sex economy, tells you that I understand you and want to help you. I want to enable you to have your sexual life at night so that you can work in the daytime, free from thoughts about sex. I want your wife to be happy in your arms and not desperate. I want your children to be rosy-cheeked and not pale, loving and not cruel. But you say, sex isn't the only thing in life. There are other, more important things. That's the way you are, little man. Or maybe, little man, you're a Marxist, a professional revolutionary, a future leader of the workers of the world, a future father of some Soviet fatherland. You want to free the world from its suffering. The misguided workers run away from you, and you run after them, shouting, "Stop, stop, ye toiling masses! Can't you see that I'm your liberator? Why won't you admit it? Down with capitalism!" I put life into your masses, little revolutionary. I show them the wretchedness of their petty lives. They listen to me. They glow with hope and enthusiasm, and run to your organizations because they expect to find me there. And what do? Sex is a petty bourgeois aberration, you say. Everything depends on economic factors, and you read Van de Velde's book about love techniques. When a great man set to work building a scientific foundation for your emancipation, you let him starve. You crushed the first campaign of truth against your deviation from the laws of life. When his campaign nevertheless proved successful, in spite of you, you took over its management and crushed it a second time. The first time the great man dissolved your organization. The second time he was unable to oppose you because he was dead. You didn't understand that in labour, your labour, he had found the vital force that creates value. You didn't understand that his theory of society was designed to protect your society against the state. You understood nothing at all. And even with your economic factors, you don't accomplish anything. A great and wise man worked all his life trying to teach you that you have to improve the economy if you want to get something out of life. that a civilization cannot be built by starving people, but requires the development of every sphere of life, that you must free your society from all tyranny. That truly great man made only two mistakes in his effort to enlighten you. He believed that you were capable of freedom and capable of safeguarding your freedom once you had won it, and his second mistake was to proclaim you, the proletarian, a dictator. And you, little man, what did you do with the great man's intellectual wealth? He gave you lofty, far-reaching ideas, but you retained only one resounding word: dictatorship. Of all the superabundance of a great warm heart, only one word remained: dictatorship. You threw everything else overboard: freedom, respect for the truth, liberation from economic slavery, methodical, constructive thinking. Only one ill-chosen, thought, well-meant word stayed with you: dictatorship. From this little blunder on the part of a wise man you built up an enormous system of lies, persecution, torture, prisons, executioners, secret police, informers, stool pigeons, uniforms, marshals and medals. Everything else you threw overboard. Now are you beginning to understand what you are like, little man? Not yet? All right, let's try again. You confuse the economic conditions of your welfare in life and love with machinery. The emancipation of man with the greatness of the state. Willingness to make sacrifices for great purposes with stupid, pig-headed party discipline. The awakening of the millions with the parading of armed might. Liberated love with indiscriminate rape when you came to Germany. The abolition of poverty with the extermination of the poor, weak and helpless. Childcare with the breeding of patriots. Family planning with medals for the mothers of 10 children. Haven't you yourself been victimized by this mother of 10 children idea of yours? The workers' fatherland isn't the only country where that ill-omened word dictatorship resounded in your ears. Elsewhere you dressed it in resplendent uniforms, and from your ranks engendered the impotent, mystical, sadistic house painter who led you to the Third Reich and 60 million of your kind to the grave, and you went right on shouting, hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. That's the way you are, little man, but nobody dares to tell you, because they're afraid of you. They want you to be little. You consume your happiness. You've never enjoyed happiness and full freedom, little man. That's why you consume it. Why you take no responsibility for the preservation of your happiness. You haven't learned, you never had a chance, to cultivate your happiness with loving care, as a gardener cultivates his flowers and a farmer his wheat. Great scientists and poets and philosophers have kept away from you, little man, because in your company it is easy to consume happiness, but hard to cultivate it, and they were eager to cultivate theirs. You don't catch my meaning, little man. All right, I'll explain. A discoverer works hard for 10, 20, 30 years on his science, his machine, or his social idea. Its newness is a staggering burden, and he has to bear it all by himself. Over the years he suffers from your stupidities, your puny, false ideas and ideals, learns to analyze and understand them, and finally replaces them by new ideas. Little man, don't you help him in his work? Far from it. You don't go to him and say, my friend, I see how hard you're working. I also see that you're working on my machine, or working for my child, my wife, my friend, my house, my field. I have long been plagued with troubles, but unable to help myself. Can I help you to help me? No, little man, you never go to your helper to help him. You shout, hurrah, hurrah, or you play cards, or you bellow at a fight, or you slave away in a factory or a mine. But you never offer to help your helper, and I'll tell you why. Because at the beginning of his labour, Discoverer has nothing to offer but ideas. No profits, no pay increase, no union wage scale, no Christmas bonus, and none of the comforts of life. All he has to share are troubles, and you want no troubles. Maybe you already have more of them than you need. But if you merely kept away and refrained from helping him, the Discoverer wouldn't be unhappy on your account. He doesn't think and worry and discover for you. He does all this because he is driven by his own functional aliveness. He leaves it to the party leaders and clergymen to minister to you and take care of you and pity you. He thinks it's high time you learn to take care of yourself. But you don't content yourself with not helping. You harass him and spit at him. When after years of hard work, the Discoverer finally comes to understand why you are incapable of giving your wife happiness and love, you go and tell him he is sexually debased. You say that because you are sexually debased and therefore incapable of love, but that never dawns on you. If the discoverer had just found out why people are dying like flies of cancer, and you, little man, happened to be a professor of cancer pathology with a well-paid job at a cancer hospital, you say he's a fake, or that he knows nothing about air germs, or that he has spent or been given too much money for his research, or you ask him if he's a Jew or a foreigner, or insist on examining him to determine whether he is qualified to deal with your cancer, and you prefer to let many cancer patients die rather than admit that he has discovered what would enable you to save your patients. Your academic standing, or your pocketbook, or your connections with the radium industry mean more to you than truth and knowledge. Little man, you are and remain small and vile. I repeat, not only do you not help, but you interfere maliciously with the work the discoverer does for you or instead of you. Now do you understand why happiness runs away from you? Happiness wants to be worked for and earned, but you merely want to consume happiness. It runs away because it doesn't want to be consumed by you. In the meantime, the discoverer has managed to convince a good many people that his discovery has practical value, that it offers a possibility of understanding certain psychic disorders, or of lifting a weight, or blasting rock, or healing tumors, or seeing through opaque matter with the help of rays. You don't believe it until you see it in the paper, because you don't trust your own eyes and intelligence. When the discovery appears in the papers, you come running. Suddenly the discoverer, whom only a short while before you were denigrating as a charlatan, pornographer, faker, and menace to public morality, becomes a genius. You don't know what a genius is, little man, any more than you know what a Jew, or truth, or happiness is. Let me tell you what Jack London said about genius in his Martin Eden. I'm sure millions of you have read it, but you haven't understood. Genius is the trademark you paste on your products when you put them up for sale. If the discoverer, who only a little while ago was a sex fiend or a psychotic, turns out to be a genius, you will be in more of a hurry to consume the happinesses he was brought into the world. In fact, you'll gobble it up, because millions of little men will come out and shout, "Genius, genius," in chorus with you. People will come in droves and eat your products out of your hand. If you're a doctor, patients will flock to you. You will be able to help them more quickly and more effectively, and you will make much more money than before. What's wrong with that? I hear you say, little man. Nothing's wrong with it. Of course not. There's nothing wrong with making money by good honest work, but it is wrong not to give anything back to the discovery, not to cultivate it, but only to exploit it, only to get rich from it. And that's exactly what you do. You do nothing to develop the great discovery in the right direction. You take it over mechanically, heedlessly, greedily, stupidly. You fail to see its possibilities or its limits. You are too short on feeling for life to see the possibilities, and at the same time you overstep the limits. If a physician or a bacteriologist you know typhoid and cholera to be infectious diseases, you will be sure to waste 30 years of research by looking for a cancer bacillus. Having learned from a great man that machines operate in accordance with certain laws, you build machines for the purpose of killing and regard living things as machines. In this you've gone astray, not for 3 decades but for 3 centuries. You've imprinted false conceptions indelibly on the minds of many thousands of scientific workers, and moreover done direct and serious injury to life itself, because on the basis of this fallacy you've been led, for the sake of your integrity, or for the sake of your dignity, or your professorship, or your religion, or your pocketbook, or your character armour, to persecute, slander, imprison, or otherwise damage anyone who was really on the track of the life function. I know, you want your geniuses and you're ready to honour them, but you want nice geniuses, well-behaved, moderate geniuses with no nonsense about them, and not the untamed variety who break through all barriers and limitations. You want a limited, cropped and clipped genius who can parade through the streets of your cities without embarrassment. That's the way you are, little man. You can spoon it into the last drop, you can help yourself and gobble it up, but you can't create. And that's why you're where you are and what you are. Why you spend your whole life in a dismal office, punching an adding machine, or hunched over a drawing board, or in the straitjacket of marriage, or in the schoolroom teaching. Though you hate children, you're incapable of developing. You'll never get a new idea, because you've always taken freely but giving nothing, because you've always helped yourself to what someone else has given you ready-made. You don't understand why this is so. It must be so. I can tell you, little man, because when you came to me with your inner emptiness, or your impotence, or your psychic disorder, I learned to recognize you as a rigid animal. You can only gobble and take. You're incapable of creating or giving, because your basic bodily attitude is one of holding back and of defiant mistrust, because you panic when the primordial impulse to love and to give stirs in you. That's why you're afraid of giving, and essentially your way of taking means only one thing. You have to stuff yourself full of money, food, happiness and knowledge, because you feel empty, starved and unhappy, devoid both of true knowledge and the desire for knowledge. That's why you go to such lengths to sidestep the truth, little man. The truth might arouse a love reflex. It might, in fact, it would show you what I'm trying, if only inadequately, to show you now. And that, little man, you don't want. You want only to be a consumer and a patriot. Did you hear that? He's attacking patriotism, the mainstay of the state and of its germ cell, the family. This must be stopped. That's the way you yell, little man, when someone calls your attention to your psychic constipation. You don't want to know. You don't want to listen. You want to shout, hurrah! I let you shout, hurrah, but you won't let me tell you why you're incapable of happiness. I see fear in your eyes, because my question hits you deep down. You're in favor of religious tolerance. You demand freedom to love your religion, whatever it may be. So far, so good. But you want more than that. You want everybody to observe your religion. You're tolerant toward your religion, but no other. And it sends you into a rage that anyone should worship not a personal God, but nature. That he should love nature and try to understand it. When a married couple find they can no longer live together, you want one member to hail the other into court with accusations of immorality or brutality. And oh, you puny descendant of great rebels, you refuse to countenance divorce by common consent. You're afraid of your own prurience. You want the truth in a mirror, where you can't take hold of it, and it can't take hold of you. Your chauvinism, little man, springs from your bodily rigidity, from your mental constipation. I can't say this to scoff at you. I don't say this to scoff at you. I say it because I'm your friend, even if you tend to kill your friends when they tell you the truth. Take a look at your patriots. They don't walk, they march. They don't hate their true enemy. They have hereditary enemies who change every 10 years, from sworn enemy to lifelong friend and back again to sworn enemy. They don't sing songs, they bellow anthems. They don't embrace their girls, they fuck them and tot them up to score for the night. The worst you can do is kill me, just as you've liquidated so many of your true friends. Jesus, Ratignolle, the warm-hearted Karl Liebknecht, Lincoln, and many more. But patriotism has liquefied you, little man, trampled and crushed you by the millions, and still you're determined to go on being a patriot.